The camera flashes came like gunfire. Victoria Bennett pressed her portfolio against her chest, auburn hair whipping across her face as she stumbled away from Algro's glass entrance. 3 months since the documentary aired, and they still wouldn't leave her alone. "Miss Bennett, just one question about your next project." She turned the corner, heels clicking frantically on wet pavement. Then a hand caught her elbow, firm but careful. "Get in." The voice was low, commanding. A sleek black Audi idled at the curb, its door already open. Victoria's breath caught as she met piercing blue eyes beneath dark hair. "I'm not kidnapping you," he said, something almost gentle breaking through his stern expression. "Just helping you escape the vultures." The shouts grew louder behind her. Victoria made her choice in a heartbeat and slid into the passenger seat. He closed the door, shutting out the chaos, and jogged to the driver's side with athletic grace. As they pulled into traffic, Victoria finally looked at him properly. Charcoal suit, perfectly tailored. Strong jaw tense with focus. The kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, but somehow she'd never seen it before. "Thank you," she managed, still catching her breath. That was intense. The paparazzi are relentless. He changed lanes smoothly, like he calculated every move 3 steps ahead. "I'm Parker Zimmerman." Victoria's stomach dropped. Parker Zimmerman, CEO of Ttile Development Group. She'd studied his company's sustainable projects for years, admired their revolutionary approach to urban architecture. But he was famously private, almost invisible despite his influence. "Victoria Bennett," she said carefully, "though I guess you might know that already." A slight smile. Pure coincidence. "I saw someone who needed help." He glanced at her, those blue eyes unervingly direct. "Though your name does sound familiar. Building Tomorrow, right? The documentary on sustainable architecture." "You've seen it?" 3 times. "Your vertical garden project in Brooklyn was brilliant." He paused at a red light. "My company is always looking for innovative architects." Heat rose to Victoria's cheeks. Before she could respond, he continued. "Where would you like to go?" "Home, office, or somewhere the paparazzi won't think to look." Victoria knew she should return to her office. Deadlines were waiting. But something about this man, this unexpected moment, pulled at her. "Somewhere quiet," she heard herself say. "I need to think." Parker nodded once, decisive, and made a sharp turn toward Midtown. 20 minutes later, they stood in an express elevator, requiring his fingerprint to access. Victoria watched the floor numbers climb impossibly high as her pulse quickened for reasons that had nothing to do with the paparazzi. "Rooftop garden," Parker explained. "Private, where I go when I need peace." The doors open onto a hidden paradise. Lush greenery sprawled across the roof, winding paths through native plants, flowering shrubs, and beyond it all, Manhattan's glittering skyline stretched endlessly. "This is incredible." Victoria breathed. Parker watched her reaction with something like satisfaction, a sanctuary above the chaos. She moved to the edge, looking down at the city. Up here, the noise faded. The cameras couldn't reach. "Thank you for rescuing me," she said softly. "You seem to specialize in creating safe spaces." Parker came to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell cedar and something darker, more complex. "It's easier to create them for others," he said, his voice dropping, "than to find them for myself." The vulnerability in those words hung between them like smoke. Victoria turned to look at him and saw past the CEO masked to something raw underneath, something haunted. Before she could respond, he gestured toward a table sheltered by climbing roses. "Coffee? The break room is stocked." "That would be wonderful." When he returned with 2 steaming mugs, Victoria was already sketching, lost in inspiration. She looked up at the start, embarrassed. "Your garden inspired me," she explained, turning her sketchbook toward him. A residential building with terrace gardens spiraling up the exterior. Every apartment gets its own green space, connected by a continuous belt. Parker studied the sketch with an intensity that made her skin prickle. When he looked up, something had shifted in his expression. "This is exactly what we need for our next development." He caught himself. "Sorry, I didn't rescue you to recruit you." Victoria laughed. It's fine. Actually, it's nice to talk about work without cameras in my face. Fame is overrated, Parker said, his expression darkening. I avoid it whenever possible. Is that why I've never seen your photo in articles about Stellar? I prefer our projects to speak for themselves. My personal life isn't relevant. There's a weight behind those words, something deliberately concealed. But Victoria didn't push. Instead, they talked for an hour, finding common ground in their vision for sustainable urban development. Time dissolved in that rooftop sanctuary. I should get back, Victoria finally said, reluctant. Client meeting tomorrow morning. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I insist. His tone left no room for argument. Besides, I'm enjoying this. In the elevator descending, Victoria felt the real world rushing back. But something had changed. Parker Zimmerman wasn't what she'd expected. Behind his reserved exterior burned the same passion that drove her own work. At her Soho office building, Parker pulled to the curb and turned to her. Thank you for sharing your afternoon, Victoria. It was refreshing. Thank you for the rescue. And the sanctuary. He hesitated, then pulled a business card from his jacket. My direct line. In case you'd like to continue our discussion, or if you need another rescue. Their fingers brushed as she took the card. Electric. I might take you up on that. Victoria watched his car disappear into traffic, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The next morning, her assistant knocked just as Victoria was preparing for her meeting. Delivery for you. Victoria looked up to find a stunning orchid on her desk. No card, just a single orchid the exact color of the climbing roses in Parker's rooftop garden. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hope you don't mind. The garden seemed incomplete without you in it. Dinner tonight? I promise. No cameras. P. Victoria's heart hammered as she typed a response. But before she could hit send, her office door burst open. A woman stood there, expensively dressed, perfectly composed, and devastatingly beautiful. Her eyes locked onto the orchid, then onto Victoria with cold recognition. So you're the architect, she said, her voice like silk over steel. I'm Celeste Zimmerman, Parker's wife. Victoria's world tilted violently. I think, Celeste continued, stepping into the office and closing the door behind her, we need to have a conversation about my husband. Victoria's fingers went numb around her phone. The unsent message to Parker glowed accusingly on the screen. Celeste Zimmerman moved through the office like she owned it, her designer heels clicking against hardwood. She was flawless in a way only money and ruthlessness could create. Blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon, eyes the color winter ice. Wife, Victoria repeated, the word tasting like ash. He never mentioned. Of course he didn't. Celeste's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. That's Parker's specialty. Omission. He doesn't technically lie. He just forgets to mention inconvenient truths. Victoria's hands trembled as she set down her phone. Why are you here? To warn you. Celeste perched on the edge of Victoria's desk, examining her manicured nails. Parker collects broken things. Beautiful, talented, broken things. He fixes them up, makes them feel special, and then he moves on to the next project. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Celeste's gaze was penetrating. Let me guess. He rescued you from something. Took you somewhere private, somewhere breathtaking. Made you feel seen in a way no one else has. Shared just enough vulnerability to make you think you understood him. Each word landed like a physical blow, because it was exactly right. We're separated, Celeste continued, her voice softening into something almost kind. Have been for 8 months. But divorce in our world is complicated. Assets, reputation, shareholders. Parker likes to pretend our marriage doesn't exist while he plays savior to women who remind him of who he used to be. Before what? Celeste stood, walking to the window. For a moment, her perfect facade cracked. Before he built his empire on top of someone else's grave. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. Parker's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Celeste said. Let's see which version of Parker you get. Victoria's finger hovered over the screen. Then she declined the call. Smart, Celeste murmured. She pulled out her own phone, tapped something, and showed Victoria the screen. A news article from 6 years ago. Zimmerman Development accused of unsafe practices after construction collapse kills 3. Victoria's stomach turned. The building was designed by Parker's mentor, Celeste explained, Daniel Chun, a brilliant architect who trusted Parker to handle construction oversight. Parker cut corners to stay under budget. The residential tower collapsed during a storm. 3 workers died. Daniel's career was destroyed by the lawsuits. He took his own life 2 years later. No, Victoria whispered. Parker is passionate about sustainable, safe development. Now he is... Celeste's expression was unreadable. Guilt makes an excellent motivator, but it doesn't change what he did, or what he's capable of doing again. The office felt too small, airless. Victoria gripped the edge of her desk. Why are you really here? She asked. If you're separated, if you're getting divorced, why do you care who Parker sees? Celeste's mask slipped entirely. Beneath the ice was something raw and painful. Because I loved him once, before the accident destroyed him, and I've watched him destroy himself trying to atone for something he can never fix. She moved toward the door, then paused. And because the women he fixates on always end up hurt. I'm trying to save you from becoming another casualty. After Celeste left, Victoria sat in silence, the orchid mocking her from across the desk. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Parker. Victoria, please. I can explain. Celeste doesn't understand. Can we meet? Her fingers moved before her brain caught up. Your wife came to see me. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. She's not my wife. Not anymore. Not in any way that matters. Did 3 people die because you cut corners on a construction project? A long pause. Then, yes. The single word destroyed her. Not because he'd done something terrible, but because he'd looked her in the eyes, talked about his passion for safety and sustainability, and never mentioned the bodies buried in his past. I need time, she typed. Victoria, please, let me explain in person. You deserve the whole truth. Do I? Or do I deserve what you decided to share? There's a difference. She turned off her phone and stared at the orchid until her assistant knocked again. Your client meeting starts in 5 minutes. Victoria stood mechanically, gathering her portfolio. But when she looked down, her hands were shaking too badly to hold it steady. That evening, she went home to her small Brooklyn apartment instead of staying late at the office like usual. She needed distance from everything. But when she unlocked her door, she found Parker sitting on her building's front steps in the gathering dusk. He looked wrecked, suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. How did you know where I live? She asked quietly. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be here. He stood slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. But I couldn't let you believe Celeste's version without hearing mine. Did people die because of your choices? Yes. Did you know your mentor? Daniel Chun. He was like a father to me. Did his death destroy you? Every single day. Victoria felt tears burning behind her eyes. Then why didn't you tell me? Yesterday, when we talked about sustainable development, about building things that last, why didn't you mention that you built something that killed people? Parker's composure finally cracked. Because for 2 hours in that garden, I got to be someone who hadn't made those mistakes. Someone who could sit with a brilliant woman and talk about the future instead of drowning in the past. His voice broke. Because you looked at me like I was worth something. You lied by omission. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. He took a step closer. But, Victoria, everything else was real. The connection we felt. The way we understood each other. That wasn't manipulation. That was the first genuine thing I've experienced in 6 years. Victoria wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. Celeste said you collect broken things. Celeste doesn't know anything about us. Doesn't she? She knew exactly how you'd approach me. Exactly what you'd say. Like she watched you do it before. Parker flinched like she'd struck him. There have been others. Women I thought I could connect with. But it never lasted because I was trying to use them to forget instead of actually heal. He looked at her with desperate intensity. You're different. How? Victoria challenged. How am I different from whoever came before me? Because you're the first person who made me want to stop running from who I am. The words hung between them in the cooling air. Somewhere above, a window opened and music drifted down. The city hummed around them, indifferent to their private devastation. I need you to leave, Victoria said finally, her voice barely audible. Parker's face went pale. Victoria, please. I need time to think. And I can't do that with you here looking at me like that. He nodded slowly, defeated. But as he turned to go, he stopped. Daniel had a daughter, he said quietly. Lily. She was 17 when he died. I've been putting her through architecture school. Full scholarship, living expenses, everything. She doesn't know it's me. But I thought you should know that I've been trying to make it right. He walked away into the dusk, leaving Victoria standing alone on the steps. She went inside, locked the door, and finally let herself break down. Because the worst part wasn't that Parker had kept secrets. The worst part was that despite everything, despite the lies and the deaths and the warnings, she still wanted to believe he could be saved. Her phone buzzed one last time before she turned it off completely. Unknown number, but not Parker's. He didn't tell you everything. Daniel's daughter, Lily, she's coming to New York next week. She wants to meet the man who destroyed her father, and she has no idea it was Parker. When she finds out, it will destroy him. Unless you help me stop her. Celeste. Victoria stared at the message as her entire world shifted again. The choice was suddenly, terribly clear. Protect the man who'd lied to her, or let him face the consequences of his past. Victoria met Celeste at a coffee shop in Chelsea 3 days later. The kind of place with exposed brick and too loud indie music, where nobody would recognize either of them. Why do you care what happens to him? Victoria asked, stirring her untouched latte. If you're getting divorced, if he hurt you, why protect him? Celeste looked older in natural light, without the armor of perfect makeup and designer clothes. Tired, because I know what it's like to live with guilt that never stops eating at you. She leaned forward. Parker wasn't the only one who cut corners on that project. I was his business partner back then. I signed off on the budget reductions. I pushed him to move faster. Victoria went still. You were responsible too. We both were. But when everything collapsed, literally and figuratively, Parker took all the blame. He refused to let me be named in the lawsuits. He protected me while his reputation burned. Celeste's voice cracked. I've been watching him destroy himself with guilt for 6 years, and I can't let him face Lily without preparation. She'll break him completely. Maybe he deserves to be broken. Maybe, but you don't believe that, or you wouldn't be here. Victoria hated that she was right. What does Lily want? Closure. Answers. Maybe revenge. She tracked down the scholarship fund somehow, figured out it wasn't random. She thinks Parker is trying to buy forgiveness. Celeste slid a folder across the table. She arrives Thursday. She's requested a meeting at Stellar headquarters Friday morning. Victoria opened the folder. A young woman stared back from a photo, dark-haired, serious-eyed. Lily Chun, age 23. Architecture student at Columbia. Dean's List every semester. She looks like him, Victoria murmured. Like Daniel, from the photos I found online. She has his talent, too. Parker watches her career obsessively. Every award, every project. He has a file of her work in his office that he thinks no one knows about. Victoria closed the folder, her chest tight. What do you want me to do? Talk to him. Prepare him. He won't listen to me anymore, but he might listen to you. Celeste's eyes were pleading. And maybe, when Lily comes, you could be there. Someone neutral. Someone who understands architecture and loss. I'm not neutral. I'm angry at him. Good. He needs someone who won't let him spiral into self-destruction. Someone who will make him face this head-on instead of running. Victoria wanted to refuse. She'd spent 3 days trying to stop thinking about Parker, trying to convince herself that walking away was the right choice. but the image of Lily Chen's face kept burning behind her eyelids. "I'll think about it," she said finally. That night, Victoria found herself outside Stellar headquarters at midnight. The building glowed against the dark sky, and she knew without knowing how that Parker would be in his office. Men like him didn't sleep when their worlds were crumbling. The security guard recognized her from the news and waved her through. The elevator to the executive floor required a code, but she remembered watching Parker's fingers on the keypad. 4733. Grief on a phone keypad. The doors open onto a silent hallway. Light spilled from one office at the end. Victoria found him standing at the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the city. His office was sparse, almost monastic, except for one wall covered in architectural drawings, all signed by Lily Chen. "You have her code," Parker said without turning around. "I wondered if you'd use it." "Grief," Victoria said. "That's your password. It's honest." He finally looked at her, and the raw pain in his face made her breath catch. "I didn't think I'd see you again. Lily Chen is coming to New York." Parker's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood. Amber liquid spread across the floor like blood. "How do you know?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Celeste told me. She wants me to help prepare you. There's no preparing for this." Parker sank into his desk chair, suddenly looking decades older. "I've been dreading this moment for 6 years. The moment she realizes a man funding her education is the same man who killed her father. You didn't kill him. The accident did. I cut the corners that made the accident possible. I prioritized profit over safety. 3 families lost someone they loved because I wanted to impress investors." He looked up at her. "And Daniel, he believed in me. He trusted me with his design, his reputation, his legacy. I destroyed all of it." Victoria moved closer, glass crunching under her shoes. "Why didn't you just tell her the truth from the beginning?" "Because I'm a coward. I thought if I could help her succeed, if I could give her the career her father never got to see, maybe it would count for something. But it doesn't change anything. It's just guilt with a price tag." "She's a brilliant architect," Victoria said softly, looking at the drawings. "She's designed 3 affordable housing projects that won national awards. She's doing exactly what her father would have wanted. I know. I've watched every step." Parker's voice broke. "And I'm so proud of her, which is insane because I have no right to feel anything about her life." Victoria sat on the edge of his desk. "Celeste said you kept everyone from knowing her role in the budget cuts. She wanted to take equal blame, but one of us needed to survive with our reputation intact. And Celeste was pregnant at the time." Victoria's world tilted again. Pregnant. She lost the baby 2 weeks after the collapse. The stress, the guilt. We never tried again. Parker's face was hollow. "That's when our marriage really ended. We just didn't admit it for another 5 years." The pieces were clicking into place, painting a picture more complicated than Victoria had imagined. 2 people destroyed by a tragedy, bound together by shared guilt, unable to move forward or let go. "Friday morning," Victoria said. "When Lily comes, I'll be here." Parker's head snapped up. "What?" "Someone needs to be the adult in the room. Someone who can see past the guilt and grief to what actually needs to happen." She met his eyes. "You need to tell her the truth. All of it. Not just the parts that make you look worse. I don't deserve your help. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about what she deserves." Victoria stood. "And Parker?" "Stop drinking. Show up Friday sober and honest, or I walk out and let you face her alone." She left him sitting in the ruins of his office, surrounded by the ghost of Daniel Chen's daughter. Thursday arrived too fast. Victoria spent the day in a fog, mechanically reviewing blueprints while her mind churned. That evening, her phone rang. Parker's number. "I'm standing in front of Daniel's grave," he said without preamble. "I come here every year on the anniversary, but I've never been able to figure out what to say." Victoria could hear wind rustling through trees in the background, the distant sound of traffic. "Tell me what happened," she said. "The real story, not the version that destroys you most." Parker was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady for the first time since she'd met him. Daniel designed the most beautiful residential tower I'd ever seen. Green spaces on every floor, sustainable materials, affordable units mixed with market rate. It was going to change how we thought about urban housing. He paused. But the budget was tight. The investors were nervous. And I was 28 years old, desperate to prove I could manage a major project. So, you cut corners. I used cheaper materials for the support structures, rushed the inspections, convinced myself the design was overbuilt anyway, that we had room for adjustments. His voice cracked. The building was 90% complete when a storm hit, Category 1 hurricane. Shouldn't have been enough to compromise anything, but the supports failed. The third floor collapsed onto the second. 3 workers were inside. Victoria closed her eyes, imagining it. The sound of steel shrieking, concrete crumbling, lives ending in seconds. Daniel was with me when we got the call. I watched his face when he realized what I'd done to his design. He didn't yell. He just looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Parker's breath was ragged. He said, "I trusted you with my legacy, and you turned it into a grave." And then the lawsuits came. I tried to protect him. I claimed the structural changes were my decision alone, that Daniel had no knowledge of the modifications. But the architectural community turned on him anyway. His firm lost clients. His reputation was destroyed. 2 years later, he walked into the Hudson River and didn't come back. Victoria felt tears on her cheeks. And you've been trying to save his daughter ever since. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know it's selfish, trying to ease my guilt through her success. But I couldn't let her suffer more than she already had. She's brilliant, Victoria. She's everything Daniel was and more. She deserves to know who's been helping her. I know, but tomorrow, when she finds out, she's going to hate me. And she should. Maybe, Victoria said softly. Or maybe she'll finally understand that the man who destroyed her father is also destroying himself every single day trying to make it right. Friday morning came with rain. Victoria arrived at Stellar headquarters an hour early, her stomach in knots. She found Parker in a conference room, sober, wearing a simple suit, hands folded on the table. Celeste sat across from him, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming," Parker said to Victoria. Before she could respond, the receptionist knocked. "Ms. Chan is here." Lily walked in like a storm given human form. Small, compact, with her father's serious eyes and a hardness that came from loss. She looked at Parker, and her face went absolutely still. "You're Parker Zimmerman." "Yes." "The Parker Zimmerman who killed my father." "Yes." Lily's hands clenched into fists. "And you've been paying for my education, my apartment, my entire life for the past 6 years. Why?" Parker met her gaze without flinching. "Because I owe your father a debt I can never repay. And because you deserve the chance he never got to see you take. You don't get to do that." Lily's voice shook with fury. "You don't get to destroy everything and then play benefactor. You don't get to ease your guilt with my success." "You're right," Parker said simply. "I don't. But I did it anyway. Because I'm selfish and broken, and I couldn't figure out any other way to live with what I'd done." Lily stared at him, breathing hard. Then she turned to Victoria. "Who are you?" "Victoria Bennett. I'm an architect. I didn't know about any of this until a week ago." "Then why are you here?" Victoria chose her words carefully. "Because someone needed to make sure this conversation happened honestly. And because I understand what it's like to have the media turn your life into a circus you never asked for." Lily's expression softened slightly. Then she pulled out a folder and dropped it on the table in front of Parker. "I found my father's files," she said. "His notes from the project. Everything he discovered about what you did." Parker's face went ashen, but he opened the folder. Inside were pages of technical drawings, calculations, notes in Daniel Chen's precise handwriting. And on the last page, a letter dated 2 days before his death. Parker's hands trembled as he read aloud. "Parker, I know you think destroying yourself will somehow balance the scales. It won't. 3 people died because we both failed them. You in your execution, me in my oversight. I should have caught your mistakes. I should have stopped you. This guilt belongs to both of us. But I'm the one who can't live with it anymore. Please don't let my death be another weight you carry. Please find a way to forgive yourself so that my daughter doesn't grow up knowing that my mistakes killed me. Take care of her if you can. She deserves better than the legacy I'm leaving. Daniel. The silence that followed was absolute. Lily spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. He blamed himself. All this time, I thought you were the only monster. But he couldn't live with his own guilt. He shouldn't have blamed himself, Parker said roughly. The failure was mine. He was the lead architect. He signed off on the design. He should have been reviewing your work more carefully. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I've spent 6 years hating you, and now I don't know who to hate. Celeste spoke for the first time. Hate us both. We deserve it. But don't hate yourself for not seeing the whole picture until now. Lily looked around the room at 3 adults destroyed by the same tragedy in different ways. Then she did something none of them expected. She laughed, bitter and broken. You've been paying for my education because you killed my father. My father killed himself because he couldn't live with his guilt over the same project. And now I'm standing here realizing that the whole catastrophe was a cascade of human failure. She wiped her eyes. Architecture school should prepare you for this, but it doesn't. What do you want from us? Victoria asked gently. Lily looked at Parker. I want you to stop hiding. Your name isn't on any of the scholarship paperwork. You use shell companies and intermediaries. But I found you anyway because I'm good at what I do. She leaned forward. I want you to own what you did. Publicly. Put your name on my scholarship. Let everyone know that Parker Zimmerman is trying to make amends for his mistakes. Parker's face went pale. That will destroy Stellar. The shareholders, the clients, everyone will know. Good, Lily said coldly. You get to choose between your company and your conscience. Let's see which one wins. She stood and walked to the door, but before she left, she turned back. And Mr. Zimmerman, thank you for the education. Despite everything, I wouldn't be who I am without it. But I never want to see you again. The money stops now. I'll finish on my own. The door closed behind her with finality. Parker sat motionless, staring at Daniel's letter. Celeste stood quietly. I'll start preparing the board for the announcement. We'll frame it as a commitment to transparency and accountability. The company will survive, Parker said hollowly. I probably won't be CEO anymore, but Stella will survive. That's more than Daniel got, Celeste said, not unkindly. She left him alone. Victoria moved to sit beside Parker. You're going to do it. You're going to tell the truth. What choice do I have? She's right. I've been hiding behind good works instead of actually taking responsibility. It's going to cost you everything. Parker finally looked at her, and something like peace flickered in his devastated expression. Maybe that's what I've needed all along. To lose everything so I can finally stop running. He reached out and took her hand. I'm going to make the announcement next week. And then I'm probably going to lose my company, my reputation, and whatever future I thought I might have. His grip tightened. But before I do, I need to know, is there any chance, after all of this, that you could ever trust me again? Victoria looked at their joined hands, at this broken man who'd lied to her and saved her and shown her that redemption was more complicated than she'd ever imagined. Ask me again, she said softly, after you've told the truth, when I know who you really are. The rain continued to fall outside, washing the city clean, as Parker nodded and held onto her hand like she was the only solid thing in his collapsing world. The press conference was scheduled for Tuesday morning. Victoria watched Parker prepare in his office, methodically organizing files that documented every decision he'd made 6 years ago. Evidence of his guilt laid bare. You don't have to do this alone, she said from the doorway. Parker looked up, exhausted. He hadn't slept in days. Yes, I do. This is my burden. Then let me carry some of it with you. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, fragile and desperate. Why would you do that? Because someone needs to be there to catch you when you fall. The night before the press conference, Parker called her at 2 a.m. I can't sleep, he said without preamble. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. The 3 workers. Daniel, Lily, Come to Brooklyn, Victoria heard herself say. You shouldn't be alone tonight. 20 minutes later, he stood in her apartment doorway, still in his suit, looking like he might shatter at any moment. Victoria pulled him inside, and they sat on her small couch, not touching, just breathing the same air. Tell me about them, she said quietly. The three who died, not as victims, as people. Parker's voice was raw as he spoke. Marcus Williams, 42, father of three. He was saving up to buy his daughter a car for her 16th birthday. Chun-Lu, 28. He'd just gotten engaged. His fiancée was pregnant. And James Okonkwo, 51. He was 2 months from retirement, planning to move back to Nigeria to be with his grandchildren. You remember all of them. I'll never forget them. I've met with their families every year. Some accept my apologies. Some slam doors in my face. All of them deserve better than what I gave them. Victoria took his hand. Tomorrow, you're going to tell the world what you did. You're going to lose everything you've built, and it still won't be enough. I know, but it's the right thing to do anyway. Parker looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something other than guilt in his eyes. She saw clarity. I think I've been in love with you since you got in my car, he said, which is insane because I've known you for 2 weeks, and I spent most of that time lying to you. You weren't lying. You were hiding. There's a difference. Is there? Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder. Ask me again after tomorrow, when you're no longer the CEO of anything, when you're just Parker Zimmerman, a man trying to be better than his worst moment. They fell asleep on her couch, fully clothed, holding each other like lifelines. The press conference was held in Stellar's main lobby. Every major media outlet attended. Victoria stood in the back, watching as Parker walked to the podium. Celeste sat in the front row, her face composed but her hands trembling. 6 years ago, Parker began, his voice steady, I made decisions that resulted in the deaths of 3 men, Marcus Williams, Chun-Lu, and James Okonkwo. I prioritized cost savings over safety. I rushed inspections. I cut corners that should never have been cut. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras flashed like lightning. The project's architect, Daniel Chun, was blamed for structural failures. But the failures were mine. I modified his design without proper approval. I used substandard materials. And when the building collapsed, I let him take the fall to protect myself and my business partner. Parker's hands gripped the podium. Daniel Chun took his own life 2 years later, unable to live with guilt that should have been mine alone. For 6 years, I've been funding his daughter's education through anonymous channels, believing that financial support could somehow balance the scales. But his daughter confronted me last week and demanded the truth. She was right to do so. He looked directly at the cameras. I'm announcing my resignation as CEO of Ttile Development Group, effective immediately. The board will be conducting a full audit of all my decisions over the past 6 years. I'm also establishing a foundation in the names of Marcus Williams, Chun-Lu, James Okonkwo, and Daniel Chun to support families affected by construction accidents and to fund safety oversight programs. Victoria watched the reporters shouting questions, saw the shock on the faces of Stellar employees. This was career suicide, professional annihilation. Everything he'd built was burning in real time. But Parker stood there unbowed and finally took responsibility for the unforgivable. The aftermath was brutal. By evening, Stellar stock had dropped 30%. The board accepted Parker's resignation and announced Celeste would serve as interim CEO. Criminal investigations were reopened. Civil suits were filed. Victoria found Parker on the rooftop garden as the sun set, sitting among the roses he'd planted in Daniel's memory. How do you feel? She asked. Light, he said, surprising her. For the first time in 6 years, I feel light. She sat beside him. The internet is tearing you apart. I deserve it. Some people are also saying you're the first CEO in decades to actually take real accountability. Parker laughed bitterly. Accountability that comes 6 years too late isn't worth much. Maybe not, but it's more than most people ever manage. They sat in silence as the city lights began to glow below them. Victoria knew this was the moment. Either she walked away from the wreckage of his life, or she stepped into it with him. I've been thinking about your terrace garden concept, Parker said suddenly. The one you sketched that first day. It's brilliant. You should build it. I don't have funding for something that ambitious. I do, or I did, before all this. He turned to look at her. I'm selling most of my assets to fund the foundation, but I kept enough for one last project. If you'll design it, I'll fund it. A building that shows what sustainable architecture can be when profit isn't the primary concern. Victoria stared at him. You want to build something together? Now, after everything, I want to build something that matters. Something that would make Daniel proud. And I can't think of anyone I'd rather do it with. Parker, you just destroyed your career. You're probably facing criminal charges. Why would you want to start a new project? Because I'm done letting guilt paralyze me. I'm done punishing myself instead of actually making amends. He reached for her hand. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. And if you're willing, I'd like you to be part of that. Victoria felt tears on her cheeks. I don't know if I can trust you completely. Not yet. I know, but maybe we can build trust the way we build buildings. One careful choice at a time, with proper oversight and no corners cut. She laughed despite herself. Then she kissed him, soft and careful, like a beginning instead of an ending. The next morning, Victoria's assistant burst into her office, face pale. There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Lilychin walked in, and Victoria's stomach dropped. I need your help, Lily said without preamble. And I need Parker's. What's wrong? Lily pulled out her laptop and showed Victoria a series of documents. Construction permits, safety inspections, building plans. I've been investigating the company that supplied the substandard materials for the project that killed my father, Meridian Supply Corporation. They've been doing the same thing for years, cutting corners, bribing inspectors, supplying defective materials to dozens of projects across the city. Victoria's blood went cold. How many buildings? At least 30, maybe more. Some of them are residential towers with thousands of people living in them right now, completely unaware that their homes could collapse in the next major storm. Jesus. I found connections to organized crime, to city officials taking kickbacks. This is huge. Lily's eyes were fierce. But I can't prove it alone. I need someone with connections to the construction industry. Someone who knows how to navigate these systems. Someone who's motivated to prevent another disaster. You need Parker. I hate that I need Parker. But yeah. Lily's jaw clenched. Because if we don't stop this, more people are going to die. And their blood will be on our hands, too, if we knew and did nothing. Victoria pulled out her phone, but before she could call, it rang. Parker's number. There's something you need to know, he said, his voice tight. I just received a file anonymously. Construction documents from Meridian Supply Corporation, the company that provided the defective materials for Daniel's project. Lily's here. She has the same information. Then you need to get out of your office. Now. What? Why? Because Meridian just learned that Lily's been investigating them. And these aren't people who handle problems through legal channels. His voice turned urgent. Victoria, they're coming for her. Get somewhere public. Somewhere with witnesses. I'm on my way. Victoria grabbed Lily's arm. We need to leave. Now! They were halfway to the elevator when 3 men in suits stepped out. But these weren't businessmen. Their eyes were too cold, their movements too calculated. Ms. Chun, one of them said pleasantly, we'd like to have a conversation with you about your recent inquiries. Victoria stepped in front of Lily. We're leaving? I don't think so. What happened next occurred in a blur. Victoria shoved Lily toward the stairs, screaming for building security. The men moved fast, but Victoria was faster. Years of running from paparazzi finally paying off as she pulled Lily down the emergency stairwell. Behind them, she heard shouting the thunder feet. They burst out onto the ground floor lobby, and Victoria saw Parker running toward them from the street entrance. Get down, he shouted. One of the men had followed him out, and he was reaching into his jacket when building security tackled him. Chaos erupted as police sirens wailed in the distance. Parker pulled both women behind a concrete pillar. shielding them with his body as more security converged on the scene. When it was over, when the men were in custody and police were swarming the building, Victoria found herself shaking uncontrollably. "You came," she whispered to Parker. "Always," he said, still holding her. "I'll always come." Lily stood apart, watching them with an unreadable expression. Finally, she spoke. "They're going to kill the investigation. These people have too much money, too many connections. The buildings will stay standing. The corruption will continue, and nothing will change. Unless we have proof they can't suppress," Parker said quietly. "Unless we have someone on the inside willing to testify." "Who would do that? Everyone's terrified of them." Parker met Lily's eyes. "I would. I've already lost everything. What more can they take from me?" "They could take your life," Victoria said, her voice breaking. "Or I could use what's left of it to actually save people this time." He turned to Lily. "I know how Meridian operates. I worked with them for years before I realized what they were. I have documentation, contacts, everything you'd need to build a case that could actually stick. You'd be a witness against organized crime," Lily said flatly. "You'd need protection. You'd have to disappear." "I know." Victoria felt her world tilting. "No. Parker, no. You just got your life back. You're supposed to be building things, making amends, moving forward. This is moving forward. This is the amends I need to make." He cupped her face in his hands. 3 people died because I cut corners. If I can prevent 30 buildings from becoming mass graves, that's not a sacrifice. That's an obligation. I'll lose you, or you'll help me do the one thing that might actually matter." Lily watched them, her expression softening slightly. "If you testify, you'll be in witness protection for years. Maybe forever. Everything you built, everyone you know, all of it disappears." "Not everything," Parker said, still looking at Victoria. "Not if she comes with me." Victoria's heart stopped. "What?" "Come with me. We'll build that terrace garden somewhere new, somewhere safe. We'll start over with nothing but each other and the chance to create something beautiful. You're insane. I have a career, a life, clients who depend on me." "I know, and I have no right to ask you to give it up." Parker's eyes were steady. "But I'm asking anyway, because for the first time in 6 years, I have a chance to save lives instead of taking them. And I can't imagine doing it without you." Lily cleared her throat. "I hate to interrupt this moment, but they're going to come after all of us now. We need to decide fast. Do we run or do we fight?" Victoria looked at Parker, this man who'd rescued her from paparazzi and swept her into his catastrophic world. This man who'd lied and then told the truth and was now offering to sacrifice everything he'd left. She thought about the rooftop garden, the sanctuary above the chaos. She thought about buildings that could collapse and kill thousands. She thought about Marcus Williams, Chin Liu, James Okonkwo, and Daniel Chun. She thought about what kind of person she wanted to be. "We fight," she said, "but we do it smart. Parker testifies, but he doesn't disappear alone." "Victoria," Parker started, "I'm not running away with you. I'm not giving up my career." She turned to Lily. "But I am going to help you build this case. And when it's done, when the buildings are safe and the corruption is exposed, Parker gets to come home." Lily studied her. "You really believe he's worth saving?" "I believe we're all worth saving. Even broken people who've done unforgivable things." Victoria looked at Parker, especially them. Parker pulled her close, and she felt him trembling. "I don't deserve you." "No," she agreed. "But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is figuring out what we do with second chances we don't deserve." Police officers approached, asking for statements. Victoria took Parker's hand as they faced what came next together. But as they walked toward the officers, Victoria saw Celeste standing by the elevator, watching them. An expression on her face made Victoria's blood run cold, because Celeste wasn't surprised by any of this. She looked like someone watching a plan unfold exactly as designed. Victoria's phone buzzed. Anonymous message. "You should ask Parker who sent Lily those files. Who told Meridian she was investigating. Who benefits most from Parker becoming a witness and disappearing forever? Ask him who knows the most about Meridian's corruption, because they've been protecting it for years. A friend. Victoria looked at Celeste, then at Parker, then at Lily, and realized with growing horror that they'd all walked straight into a trap. Victoria pulled Parker aside before they reached the police officers, her heart hammering. Who sent Lily the files about Meridian? Parker's brow furrowed. I assumed she found them herself. She said she'd been investigating. Think about it. How would a 23-year-old architecture student get access to organized crime documents and construction corruption records spanning years? Understanding dawned in Parker's eyes, followed by devastation. He turned to look at Celeste, who was still watching them with that calculated expression. No, he breathed. She wouldn't. But Victoria was already walking toward Celeste, everything clicking into place. Parker followed, with Lily close behind. You knew about Meridian, Victoria said quietly. You've known all along. Celeste's mask slipped for just a second, revealing something cold and sharp underneath. Then she smiled. I don't know what you're talking about. You were Parker's business partner 6 years ago. You signed off on using Meridian's materials. But Parker took all the blame, protected you, let his reputation burn, while yours stayed clean. Victoria's voice was steel. And now you're CEO of Ttile. Convenient. Are you suggesting I orchestrated all of this? Celeste laughed, but it was hollow. That's quite a conspiracy theory. Parker stepped forward. You sent Lily the files. You told Meridian she was investigating. You knew they'd come after her, knew I'd step and protect her, knew I'd offer to testify. His voice broke. You've been planning this from the moment I announced my resignation. You're paranoid, Celeste said, but her eyes gave her away. Lily's voice cut through the tension. My father's letter. The one I showed you at the meeting. I found it in a safety deposit box only I should have had access to. But someone had been there before me. Someone who left the box just slightly open. She looked at Celeste. You knew what was in that letter. You knew it would make Parker even more vulnerable to guilt. Prove it, Celeste challenged. Victoria pulled out her phone, showing the anonymous text. Someone wanted me to figure this out. Someone who knew I'd put the pieces together. She looked at Celeste. You sent this, didn't you? You wanted me to know. Why would I do that? Because you're tired, Parker said quietly, understanding flooding his features. You're tired of carrying the guilt alone. You watched me destroy myself for 6 years, and you've been destroying yourself just as thoroughly. You just hit it better. Celeste's composure finally cracked. You have no idea what it's been like. Watching you play martyr while I built a career on the ashes of people we killed together. Smiling for shareholders while knowing every brick of Ttile was paid for with blood money. So you decided to take me down with you, Parker said. I decided to free us both. Celeste's voice was fierce. If you testify against Meridian, you disappear into witness protection. You get to start over, clean slate, no more guilt. And I get to run Ttile, without you haunting every hallway. We both get what we need. Except it's built on manipulation and more lies, Victoria said. You put Lily in danger. You use her father's memory as a weapon, and you almost got us all killed. But you didn't die, Celeste pointed out. Meridian's thugs are in custody. You have evidence of their corruption. Parker gets to be the hero who brings them down. Everyone wins. Except for the truth, Lily said, her voice shaking with rage. My father died thinking he was responsible for those deaths. And you've known the whole time that you were just as guilty as Parker. You let him shoulder everything while you climbed to the top. Celeste met Lily's eyes. Your father was a brilliant man who made one mistake, trusting us. I've lived with that every day. But unlike Parker, I chose survival over confession. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed either. You should be, Parker said, and there was no anger in his voice, only sadness. Because you're right, I get to start over. I get to walk away from this with Victoria and build something new. But you'll still be here, running a company built on our shared sins, alone with your guilt until it eats you alive. Something flickered in Celeste's expression, pain deep and old. Victoria's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. The police will be very interested in the files. I just sent them. Proof that Celeste Zimmerman has been aware of Meridian's corruption for years and accepted payments to keep quiet. She won't be CEO for long. A friend. Victoria showed the message to Celeste, who went pale. Who sent that? Celeste demanded. You tell me. You seem to have all the answers. But they all turned as someone stepped out from behind a pillar. A young woman with dark hair and determined eyes. Not Lily. Another woman entirely, holding a phone. Sarah Williams. She said quietly, Marcus Williams was my father, the foreman who died in the collapse. Parker's face went ashen. Sarah, I've tried to reach out to you so many times. I know. I've been watching you all for 6 years. Sarah held up her phone. Following the money, tracking the corruption, waiting for the right moment to make everyone pay. You sent the files to Lily, Victoria realized. You've been orchestrating this whole thing. Someone had to. Sarah's voice was steady, controlled. My father died because these two cut corners. Daniel Chin died because he couldn't live with the guilt. 3 families were destroyed. And for 6 years, I watched Parker Zimmerman play the tortured hero while Celeste Zimmerman played the savvy businesswoman. And no one knew they were both responsible. She walked closer, her phone still recording. I couldn't get justice through the courts. The settlements were sealed, the investigations closed. So I decided to create my own justice. I fed information to Lily, knowing she'd confront Parker. I fed information to Meridian, knowing they'd react violently. I made sure Victoria would be there to see everything. You used my father's death, Lily said, her voice hollow. I used everyone's tragedy, Sarah agreed, because that's what it takes to expose people like them. They're too rich, too connected, too good at hiding behind lawyers and public relations. But get them emotional, get them scared, get them desperate, and they reveal themselves. Celeste laughed bitterly. So what now? You recorded us all confessing. You'll go to the police, and we'll all go down, including your new friend Lily, who technically conspired with you. No, Sarah said. Lily was an innocent pawn. She genuinely believed she was investigating on her own, just like Victoria genuinely believed she was helping Parker find redemption. She looked at Parker and Celeste. But you two, you're going to do exactly what you planned. Parker testifies against Meridian. Celeste resigns as CEO and confesses her own role in the original corruption and the cover-up. And if we refuse? Celeste asked. Then I release everything. The recordings, the documents, the proof that you've both known about Meridian's ongoing corruption and done nothing. You'll go to prison, Ttile will collapse, and everyone who works there will lose their jobs. Sarah's expression was implacable. Or you do the right thing for once in your lives, and maybe some good comes from all this death. The silence stretched like broken glass. Finally, Parker spoke. I'll do it. I'll testify. I was planning to anyway. But now you don't get a clean exit, Sarah said. Now you have to live with knowing that even your redemption was manipulated by someone with better reasons to want justice than you ever had. Parker absorbed this like a physical blow. Then he nodded. Fair enough. Celeste looked at all of them. Her perfect composure finally shattered. I'll resign. I'll confess. I'll do whatever you want. Her voice broke. Just please let me have one thing. Let me fund the foundation properly. Let me put enough money into safety oversight and victim support that it actually matters. Let me do something that isn't completely selfish. Sarah studied her. You really want absolution. I want to sleep at night, just once before I die. After a long moment, Sarah nodded. The foundation, full funding, and you do prison time for the cover-up. 3 years minimum. Agreed. They turned to Lily, who had been silent through the entire exchange. What do you want? Victoria asked gently. Lily looked at Parker, at Celeste, at Sarah, and finally at Victoria. I want my father's name cleared. Publicly. I want the architectural community to know that Daniel Chen's design was sound, that the failure was in execution and oversight, not in vision. Her voice was strong. And I want to finish that terrace garden project you two were talking about. The one my father would have loved, as a lead architect, with proper funding and Parker's expertise, but my design. Victoria smiled despite everything. Deal. 6 months later, Victoria stood on a construction site in Brooklyn, watching Lily direct a team of builders as they installed the terrace gardens on what would become the greenest residential building in New York history. Parker was gone, somewhere in witness protection, his testimony having taken down not just Meridian, but an entire network of construction corruption. She'd received one letter untraceable, just 3 words. I miss you. Celeste was serving her sentence at a minimum security facility, having negotiated a deal in exchange for her cooperation. The foundation she'd funded was already making a difference, supporting families affected by construction accidents and implementing oversight programs that were changing industry standards. Sarah Williams had disappeared after the trials, her mission complete, but Victoria had received a package from her a month earlier. Inside was a photo of Marcus Williams with his teenage daughter, both of them laughing. On the back, Sarah had written, "He would have loved what you're building. Thank you for seeing it through." And Lily, brilliant, fierce Lily was creating something extraordinary, a building that honored her father's vision while pushing sustainable architecture into new territory. Victoria. Lily called from the scaffolding. "Come see this." Victoria climbed up to find Lily pointing at a section of the terrace where native plants were already starting to establish. "It's working," Lily said, wonder in her voice. "The ecosystem is taking hold. Birds are already nesting here." They stood together, looking out at the city spreading below them. "Do you think they're at peace?" Lily asked quietly. "Our fathers, the ones we lost." Victoria thought about Daniel Chun, about Marcus Williams and Chin Lu and James Okonkwo, about the cost of mistakes and the price of redemption. "I think they're watching us try," she said. "And maybe that's enough." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, untraceable message. "I'm building a garden here, too. Tomatoes and roses. Thinking of you with every seed. I hope you're well. I hope the building is everything we imagined. I hope you found peace even though I'm not there to share it. All my love, wherever you are. P." Victoria smiled, typing a response she knew would reach him somehow. "The garden is beautiful. The building is rising. Lily is brilliant. And yes, I found peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from building something that matters on top of the ruins. That's what you taught me. Wait for me. When this is done, when the buildings are safe and the foundations are solid, I'll find you, and we'll start over properly this time, with truth instead of secrets." V. She hit send and turned back to construction site, to the work that needed doing, to the future being built one careful choice at a time. Below them, the city hummed with life. Above them, the sky stretched endlessly, and between earth and heaven, they were building something that would last, something that honored the dead by serving the living, something that proved even broken people could create beauty from their shattered pieces. Lily caught Victoria's hand, squeezing once before returning to her work. "He'll wait for you," she said. "Men like Parker, who finally learn what matters, they wait forever." "I know," Victoria said. "And when I'm ready, when we've built this sanctuary together, I'll go find him. And then we'll build another garden. And another, until the whole city is covered in green growing things that prove redemption isn't about forgetting the past. It's about growing something new from the soil of what came before." The sun set over Brooklyn, painting the skeletal structure they're building in gold and amber light. Somewhere, Parker was watching a similar sunset, building his own small garden, waiting for the day when waiting would end. And somewhere in the city, 3 families were sleeping peacefully in homes made safer by reforms paid for with guilt and grief, and the stubborn belief that even the worst mistakes could lead to something better. It wasn't a perfect ending. There was no perfect ending for tragedies like theirs. But it was real, and it was honest, and it was enough. The end.